Good evening and welcome to another episode of Crowdpondent Central.
I'm Dean Forrester and co-anchoring with me tonight is Cameron Rogers. Welcome back.
Cheers, Dean. It's good to be back and we have a hell of a show for you here today.
That's right. We're going to be tackling another very big issue in the world today, and that is Israel-Palestine. It's been 100 years since the Balfour Declaration, which is essentially where Britain helped create the State of Israel. Unfortunately, it's not all been a happy ending since that.
Yeah, so on today's show we're going to get some pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli viewpoints on the matter and see how they weigh up and see what both sides think about this really important issue.
Yeah, so first off, we're actually going to be having a debate between the Zionist Federation and the Jews for Justice for Palestinian, perhaps two of the most polar opposite camps in politics.
And join me later on where I will be attending a pro-Palestinian rally to mark the 100th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. We'll see what sort of international solidarity Palestine has here in Britain, and we'll speak to some people on the other side who turned up for the ride.
Yeah, I assure you, you're going to want to stick around for that one. Some of Cam's finest reporting yet. But first, let's get into this debate. So, joining me today is Ariel Miller of the Zionist Federation and Glyn Secker of Jews for Justice for Palestinians. And we're going to talk a lot about BDS today. So I want to kick things off by asking Glyn, you know, presumably you support BDS, and if so, why is this?
Yeah, we have a very careful boycott policy. It's called a smart boycott policy, and we target any organisation or institution which is implicated in the violation of Palestinian human rights. In other words, we make a distinction between boycotting organizations that carry out those violations and the State of Israel itself. We do not have a position of boycotting Israel itself.
Okay. And could you just quickly outline the sort of the motivations behind the BDS movement?
Yes, BDS is a very civil and peaceful strategy for demonstrating one's opposition to violation of human rights. So we're a human rights-based organization, and we believe that BDS is an effective policy for doing this, both in practical terms and in wider political terms in the messages that it delivers.
Okay, Ariel, what are your thoughts on even a sort of refined, smart boycott?
So what Glyn has described there isn't BDS. That isn't what the BDS movement would claim to be doing, and it's interesting that he then goes on to explain that he supports BDS whilst supporting something that isn't BDS. But the problem that we have with BDS is that it disengages from the dialogue. It holds one party to account for a conflict that has been going on since long before 1948, and a conflict that needs to come to an end by both parties coming together, not by one party being held to a different account than the other party. Okay, well, we'll get onto that shortly, but what do you think is the BDS movement then? So the BDS movement seeks to hold Israel to a different account to the Palestinians. It seeks to denigrate Israel, and it seeks sanctions on a country that is part of the Western world and is doing some phenomenal things for its Arab population. It seeks to distort the conversation on Israel and Palestine, and it's not looking for the widely accepted two states for two people. What it's looking for is a single state solely for the Palestinian people, and to wipe Israel and the Jewish state off the map. Its stated aims have been long stated by its founder.
Do you think that's a fair assessment, Glyn?
No, not at all. First of all, we are solidly behind the, or most, probably 90% of all the actions initiated by the International Boycott Organization, because if you look at the targets that they identify, they actually are the same targets that we would identify. And so we always endorse
academics, cultural boycotts. You would support that.
Yes, yes. Yes, if you let me,
because academics are complicit in the persecution of Palestinians.
Let me respond to your academics and cultural boycott. Okay, we do not have a position of boycotting individual lecturers, academics. We have a position of boycotting academic institutions which, for example, have contracts with Elbit weapons systems and other components of the military. Cultural boycott, we boycott cultural organizations which are funded by the military or funded for purposes, direct purposes of propaganda. And other cultural organizations we do not boycott. So we are targeted on that.
I'd be interested to know which cultural industries are funded by the IDF, but carry on.
I mean, do you see any merit to this campaign if it's targeting specifically sort of military institutions and things actively participating in the Palestinian occupation?
Absolutely not. It's holding one side to a different account. We have a statue in the center of Ramallah dedicated by the Palestinian Authority to a terrorist, a world-recognized terrorist, who blew up a fridge on one of Jerusalem's busiest shopping streets. That was dedicated by the leaders of the Palestinian people. Imagine for 1 second Prime Minister Netanyahu of the Israeli government dedicating a statue to a Jewish terrorist in the center of Jerusalem. Imagine the international uproar. Where was that international uproar towards the Palestinian Authority? That's because the BDS movement is one-sided and seeks to target Israel and hold it to a different account than the Palestinian Authority. There are over 60 schools named after terrorists. I mean, it's a ludicrous scenario that nobody wants to talk about.
Okay, but I feel that the BDS is more of an international approach to trying to solve the conflict. Specifically regarding these measures of boycotting components that are actually part of the occupation, to put it mildly, is there no justification for this at all?
But that's not what the BDS movement is. The BDS movement opposes the Jewish state, full stop. Omar Barghouti, the founder of the BDS movement, was quoted as saying, Palestinians have a right to resistance by any means, including armed resistance. He was also quoted saying, definitely, most definitely, we oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. No Palestinian.
Well, Israel is no stranger to armed resistance itself.
Israel has a defence force, the same as the UK does, the same as any Western country does. But we're talking here about the definition of BDS. The definition of BDS by its founder is to most definitely oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. That's not looking for a two-state solution. It's pure and simple.
I'm gonna jump in and then pass back over to Glenn. But the BDS movement is clearly not a homogenous entity, as Glyn is arguing. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Glyn?
Well, let's just start with this issue of terrorism and violence. Okay, Israel has been the occupying power of the West Bank for 50 years now, and military law governs all of the civilians there. Or the Palestinian civilians, except the settlers who exist under Israeli civilian law. The military law subjects those Palestinians to untold hardships and oppression and makes their life extremely difficult indeed. There are arrests of children in the middle of the night, illegally taken across into Israel. There are a rolling program of something like 600 children incarcerated in Israeli prisons and badly treated. That was a report detailed by the British Foreign Office. There is the blockade of Gaza, which has been going on for 10 years, which the United Nations says is making it uninhabitable now. And the privations there are extreme, and it's becoming another Sarajevo. I can detail all the issues around that, if you like, about how Gaza is really a prison camp on the side, the world's biggest prison camp at the moment. So we have Israeli Defense Force is carefully named, but it's actually not just defense. It's an aggressive force which perpetrates multitude of crimes against the Palestinians. So let's get that one out of the way first. And therefore, we're in favor of boycotting military operations and military sources because they perpetrate these crimes against the Palestinians. BDS itself is a peaceful process, okay? It doesn't commit any violent crimes itself. It's about boycott, and that's completely legitimate under international law. And it's no good actually you trying to denigrate it as anti-Semitic by saying that it's against the Jewish state.
Glyn, you are very much putting words into my mouth there. I can't allow you to do that. At no point, you are the person now who has mentioned anti-Semitism. If you want to get into an anti-Semitism debate, I'm more than happy.
I think we should probably steer clear of that one for now.
I want Glyn to either apologise or retract that statement.
No, I'm not apologising. You mentioned the Jewish state, and you said that boycott was against the Jewish state. So if you're against Jews, then you become anti-Semitic. That's the logic of your statement.
Your words, not mine.
Okay, well, okay, let's move on from this, Ariel.
At no point did I say that.
No, okay, but I want to just ask you, Ariel.
That is absolutely unacceptable. Look at his grin. That is absolutely unacceptable. He has decided to change the nature of this debate, to accuse me of something that I haven't said. And to accuse me of believing something that I haven't mentioned at all.
Well, you said, okay, so...
This question about the Jewish state. Israel is just in the process of completing passing of laws defining Israel as a Jewish state, correct?
It's a very long process. It is in the same place as it was about 6 months ago. But carry on with your very target.
Yeah, well, I wanted to just move forward slightly, guys.
You agree that it should be defined as a Jewish state?
You agree that Hamas are a legitimate political force?
No. I'll answer your question about Hamas in a minute. Answer my question.
I'm asking you a question.
You're not.
You're putting words into my mouth.
This is the dialogue we need, guys. This is the way to move.
Please reply.
We're here to discuss BDS.
Do you think Israel should be defined as a Jewish state?
Israel is a Jewish state.
No, I'm asking you whether it should be defined as a Jewish state.
In the Declaration of Independence, it talks about it being a Jewish state for all of its citizens.
Okay, and if it then constructs all its laws so that it is a Jewish state, where does that place the 1.5 million Palestinian Israeli citizens?
With full rights and full voting rights, full civilian rights, full everything. The United Arab List is one of the biggest parties in Parliament. How many Jews are there living within Palestinian Authority rule? Tell me that. Well, how many Jews were there living within Arab countries 50, 60, 70 years ago? 800,000 Jews were kicked out of their homes.
But anyway, guys, we're getting bogged down here. Let's move forward. I want to ask you, Ariel, if you are not a fan of the boycott movement, in whichever form it may take, what would you suggest Glyn does? What action should him and his fellow Jews for Justice for Palestinians take in order to help achieve a peaceful solution? What would you suggest that he does?
It's very simple. We need to promote dialogue. We need to promote engagement. If there is no dialogue and no engagement, then there's no point in seeking peace. I don't believe that the BDS movement is seeking peace. I believe they're seeking a single unilateral Palestinian state and the lack of existence of any sort of state of Israel, any sort of Jewish state. They believe in self-determination for the Palestinian people, but not for the Jewish people. And it's pure and simple, single-minded hatred.
And Glyn, what are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I got interrupted by someone behind me. Could you, as the compere, just summarise that point?
Yeah. So he's saying that we need, instead of boycott, more dialogue is the solution that's needed.
Well, there's been a refusal by Israel to conduct proper dialogue over decades, and every
simply
time
not true.
well, anytime any dialogue takes place, they move the goalposts. So, for example, with
Glyn, I think there's a flying pig behind you.
With the famous Oslo Accords, what happened was that in the small print, it left Israel in control of the situation, so that none of the powers were actually transferred that were meant to have been transferred, and the assessment period moved from 5 years to 10 years. And it resulted in a decimation of the Palestinian economy on the West Bank, particularly the farming and particularly Israel's control of water supplies that came out of the Oslo Accords. And Israel does not want dialogue because it actually likes the military. The current government in Israel likes the current military domination of the situation, and my view is working
statements with no evidence
to annex Area C completely.
Okay, well, I would really love to carry on this discussion, but unfortunately we're running out of time. So I want to wrap things up now. As you may be aware, it is the 100th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, so it's quite a fitting day to have this debate. Where do you see this issue in maybe another 100 years, or even just 10 years? I want Ariel, you go first on this concluding remark.
I think Glyn is distorting facts. He's not bringing any evidence. What we need to be doing is...
No, where do you see this situation in 10 years?
Finished him, because you've let him start and end the debate. So if you at least let me finish my statement.
Yeah, but I was just trying to direct you to the question I asked.
Absolutely, but if you allow him to start and finish the debate, you have to allow me.
It was just because he just went last. I was trying to keep it uniform. You can go last. Glyn, where do you see Palestine and Palestine and Israel in 10 years? What do you think is the likely sort of outcome, or not even outcome, continuation?
Well, personally, I'm extremely skeptical of either a one or a two-state or a canton or any other variations of the proposals for a solution until actually it becomes in the interests of American foreign policy to force through a peaceful reconciliation, because it's Western and American interests in the whole region that dominate the agenda. Well, you could be smiling away, but Israel is funded by $3.9 billion a year, for starters, by the American administration. It's a key component of American and European interests in the Middle East, key component of the oil revenues transacted in dollars, which underpin the dollar as a reserve currency of the world. And really, until those macro issues are not resolved, I'm afraid I don't think we're going to get any just solution to the Israel-Palestine issue.
And Ariel, where do you see this situation ending up?
There's only two parties that can bring about peace: Israel and the Palestinians. The Paris summit on peace in the Middle East included 70 countries. There were two countries not represented there, two peoples not represented there: the Israelis and the Palestinians. What was happening while they were having their photo op? This agreement was being signed. Can you see that? That agreement. An Israeli official, Palestinian official, signing an agreement for water provision to the West Bank for the next 10 years. While 70 countries are having their photo op on the lawn in Paris, the Israelis and the Palestinians are sitting down next to each other, signing an agreement.
But it's Palestinian water that's being carved up. And
Glyn can be as negative as he wants to be.
It's sold to Israelis to fill their swimming pools. Come on.
Glyn can make up facts as much as he wants to and be as negative as he wants
to
be.
Go to what fans on the...
I look to positivity. I think that peace is a reality we can come to, as long as both sides come to the table without any preconditions. That can happen and will happen within the next 10 years.
And I'm very glad that both of you came to this particular table. Hopefully we can set an example for the future. Thanks very much for coming on, guys. It was really interesting. It's a shame we didn't have more time. Really, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, that was a pretty interesting debate. It sort of reflects how productive discussions have been on this issue for the past 100 years.
Exactly, but at least we're trying to get a debate going.
Yeah.
But you went out into London to see how the pro-Palestinian movement is looking 100 years on. Isn't that right, Cam?
That's right.
That's right. Let's watch. That's a squeaky chair you've got there.
War crimes, and anyone who speaks out is labelled by the Israeli state as anti-Semitic in an attempt to silence us.
But let's be honest, what the hell do I know in the grand scheme of things?
Good question.
But I tell you who will know something. You. Crowd pundits out there, people who are Israeli, people who are Palestinian, who live in Israel, who live in Palestine, who have something to say, who have something of worth to contribute to this discussion. Please, the videos for how to sign up to Crowdpondent are on this channel.
Get involved, guys. Get
Sign
involved.
up, send us your videos, send us your documentaries, tell us what you think.
You can come on this show.
You can come on this show. Because in reality, like, we really know very little
about this subject.
So if you think we're getting it all wrong, and I guarantee you most of us think that that's exactly what's going on, please send in your material and prove us wrong.
Please. Please.
Please prove me wrong. Call me Jack.